Penn State, in a stunner, pulls Jim Knowles to Happy Valley. And look, it's not all good news for James Franklin.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth, whatever those stories may be. Brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. So there's no better way to make every play more exciting with Super Bowl 59 here than FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook, new customers can bet $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Does Florida take a step forward? Deion Sanders isn't going to the NFL? Oh, I'm shocked, except I'm not. I'm also not shocked that Zach Sako of Locked On Nittany Lions is here and that he's in a very good mood. Ohio State defense coordinator Jim Knowles goes from the national champion Buckeyes to the team they defeated in the regular season and almost played again in the national championship game. Here's why I say it's not all good news for Penn State and James Franklin here, Zach, and that's that the pressure on the 2025 season is now a crock pot that has been left on too long. It has been sealed airtight, set to high, and you are pumping helium into the balloon, and you are testing the limits because you have got Allar coming back, Singleton, Katron Allen, Dennis Sutton, and a bunch of other key pieces. Now you bring in one of the best defensive coordinators in the country that just won a national championship. Penn State kind of feels like Ohio State going into next year in that sense.
And I'll take it a step further, like Michigan for the 23-24 season, where you have all of these veterans coming back. I mean, this is natty or bust for Penn State. You're saying it in a different way. Let's put it in simple terms. This is an all-in attempt at a national title for 2026 when the postseason actually rolls around. But Penn State becomes the team to beat in 2025. You were able to retain Andy Kotelnicki, who was flirting with head coaching opportunities. You get back a quarterback that, I don't care what the naysayers say, the NFL, he would have been a first-round quarterback in this year's draft because of potential alone. So Drew Allar's an NFL caliber quarterback. Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen come back. Spencer, find me a program in the last maybe 20, 30, 40 years, probably a long time, where you have two co-starters at running back who are NFL caliber that came back for their fourth consecutive season starting. No team has that in the present. I don't think a team's had that in the past 10, 20, 30 years. Find me somebody. This is the historical precedent that Penn State is setting. Penn State also gets 4 of its starting linemen returning, 4 out of 5 from the previous season, and then Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant. You're getting A.J. Harris and Tony Rojas, who are going to take a next step forward. Zachy Wheatley in the back end of the defense, and then you add Jim Knowles on top of it, the best defensive coordinator in all of college football, the guy who just constructed back-to-back top 3 defenses conservatively. I know that's at Ohio State and you have the roster to do it. So does Penn State for this season. And I saw this on, whether it was in the YouTube comments, on X, Twitter, that why does Penn State need Jim Knowles? The defense isn't the problem. Why is there no room for improvement? If Penn State's supposed to be a national championship caliber team, you go and improve every aspect of your team. Tom Allen gave them a top 10 defense. Who's to say Jim Knowles can't give them, at a minimum, a top 5 with this group coming? That's the expectation. Top 5 defense, top 5 rushing attack, and a quarterback that is not good. Whatever you think about Drew Allar, he does not make the detrimental mistakes outside of the one in the national semifinal. One time where he has truly cost the team a win.
A couple things there. First, on the Tom Allen to Jim Knowles transition there, you are losing one of the most singularly impactful defenders in all of college football. I don't care how well Penn State has recruited, who they have waiting in the wings. You have a void to fill without Abdul Carter on the defense. That is just a straight up undeniable fact. But if you bring in someone that just coordinated what I think was the best defense in college football. Now, I don't think that Penn State has the same level of talent that this Ohio State team did, but the number of veteran returners is still a good amount for the Nittany Lions. There is still talent there. There's still NFL prospects. I mean, A.J. Harris in the next year could be a first-round pick in the NFL draft very, very easily. Like they have got players on that end. And to your point about the coordinators, this is now the third defensive coordinator that James Franklin has had in the last 3 seasons. You had Manny Diaz move on. You had Tom Allen. He's at Clemson now as a defense coordinator. You bring in Jim Knowles, and there's also an element of legitimacy that I think this gives the Penn State program. You know, Knowles, there were some reports, I haven't been able to confirm or even read that deeply into, frankly, whether, you know, there were strifes with him and Ryan Day and the coaching staff and all this. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that there were, hypothetically, you still wouldn't take Jim Knowles as going to Penn State as your top option, right? Oklahoma is who we talked about on Friday's show as being one of the leaders for him. Penn State's not supposed to be in the same class as Oklahoma. You're not supposed to be able to get that level of coaching staff, but I think that's how James Franklin has built this program, and what they should be viewed as right now is this is a national title contender that, as you said, for a lot of people is going to be national championship or bust, but the statement this makes, I think, is almost as important as what Knowles can actually do for Penn State's defense, however long he stays in Happy Valley.
This whole coordinator search or battle, first of all, Penn State's 2-0 against Oklahoma when it comes to coordinator battles. They were both chasing after Andy Kotelnicki. Penn State outbid Oklahoma for Andy Kotelnicki. They were both chasing after Jim Knowles. And funny enough, just you look at the reporting, Jim Knowles contacted Oklahoma first. He wanted out of Ohio State. And he contacted Oklahoma, and then Penn State, Tom Allen leaves. Nobody expected Tom Allen to leave. Nobody expected, but that was another domino in the sequence because Tom Allen was going to return for another season. Continuity, consistency, top 10 defense, can't complain. But Penn State has an opportunity to get better here. But then Tom Allen leaves for Clemson. Now Penn State's in the market. And look at the way that Penn State goes and out-recruits Oklahoma once again for another premier coordinator. First it was Andy Kotelnicki. Now it is Jim Knowles. So Oklahoma really has no say in this instance. The whole coordinator search above it all.
The glee on your face making that statement.
Because here, Spencer, it's honestly... I get a chance to just kind of express the frustration in all of this because you go to the Oklahoma sources, you go to the Ohio State sources, you read what people are saying in my comment section or just in general that Penn State's no chance, it's a demotion, whether it's from the Oklahoma perspective or Ohio State, and all of they were clinging to whatever fringe sources they had. My sources said, hey, Penn State's in the lead for this. Penn State is they just need to get this over the finish line, and Jim Knowles is going to be the DC. But then when I checked in with Oklahoma people, then when I checked in with Ohio State people, no, he's probably returning. I heard that this guy said, y'all need to get some new sources, is what this boils down to. People in the Oklahoma and Ohio State parts of college football really need to get some new sources because they are not reliable. This was something that Penn State felt really confident about. They were aggressive, and this hasn't been the first time that James Franklin has tried to make a play at Jim Knowles. Despite them getting Manny Diaz and Tom Allen, every time that Penn State's had a defensive coordinator opening, James Franklin has always identified Jim Knowles as his top target. Whether it made sense, whether it was realistic, timing matters, Spencer. And this time around, it was fitting. But James Franklin and Penn State have always tried to make Jim Knowles a top candidate, whether it was realistic or even possible at the time. And now, third time's a charm, I suppose, in this sense. And Penn State gets their guy.
Zach Seiko with the barbecue churned up to high all the way at 500 degrees. I loved that. That was excellent. With what would Colin Cowherd say? The big J journalism over here. That's what Seiko brings to the table. Does Billy Napier bring more winning to the table in Florida? Look, it's possible. They have a higher win total than last year. Good for them, I guess. I've got questions. First, this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is taxes now with TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Go check them out at TurboTax.com. Does Florida actually take a step forward in 2025? I mean, theoretically, they could. Brandon Olsen of Locked On Gators is here. I don't know how confident he is in Billy Napier. How confident are we ever in Billy Napier? But I tell you what, I have to eat a little bit of crow here, Brandon. I thought Florida would be solid, but miss a bowl game. I did not see 8 wins coming before the season, 7 of which were in the regular season. That surpassed my expectations and the expectations of many, but was this a flash in the pan? Was this LSU and Ole Miss crumbling more than it was Florida elevating, Florida State as well? Or was this, hey, Billy Napier's figuring it out, get ready for the SEC contending Gators?
Brother, I got no clue. I gotta be honest with you. I got no clue, because when you think about the way that this team ended the season was incredible. That they dominated the game against LSU. Like, LSU had allowed, 6 sacks the entire season going into that game, and then Florida sacked them 7 times, beat Ole Miss. I mean, Florida State was Florida State, man. I'm not going to pat anybody on the back for that game.
That team was so bad.
In fact, I will give Florida a negative for that, because Florida State fumbled 8 times, and you only put up 31 points, and that's bad. That's bad. But no, realistically, I don't know, because the way this team ended the season was fantastic, but it frustrates me a little bit, because prior to the season, I said, hey, I think this is a 5, 6, 7 win team. Like 6-6 was my expectation. I don't include bowls whenever I'm projecting a record, because I don't want to go revisionist. But yeah, I was like, 6 wins is what this team is probably going to get there. And when we got to that first bye week, and they were 2-2 with wins over Samford and Mississippi State and bad losses to Miami and Texas A&M, I was like, oh man, 6 wins isn't happening. And then it did, of course. But that frustrates me more, because if you played the first month of the season the way you should have played, you could have been, not that you would have been, but you could have been in college football playoff contention. If you win one of those games against Texas A&M and Miami, your season looks way more impressive. Even chalking off the Texas loss, go, oh yeah, backup, whatever. It looks way more impressive, but that's why it's frustrating. Are we going to see new Billy, end of the season Billy in 2025? Or are the Florida Gators going to come out flat in week 1 for the 3rd year in a row? It's tough. It's tough to have confidence. I think that they've done a fantastic job building this roster. I truly do. I think they've got a college football playoff roster. Coaches have to catch up to the talent, though.
So I'm with you on the slow starts. Of course, they won one of those games against Utah in the Swamp. The Utes gave them a little payback the following year. And then the Miami debacle, you and I both picked Florida to win that game because they were at home. And I'm glad you brought up the early season versus end of season split, because I'm in the same place mentally when thinking about Florida, which is, okay, I see that potential there, but I, unlike a lot of other folks, I'm not just going to forget what happened in the first 3 weeks, which is I came on this very show and said, I don't think Billy Napier should be Florida's head coach anymore. Go get Lane Kiffin. I wasn't the only one with that opinion, because they weren't just beaten twice, Brandon. They were blown out twice at home to teams who were good, to be clear, but were they great? Were they world beaters? Should they have beaten you like that on your home field? No. And so I'm glad for Florida's sake that you think the roster is there, but Napier and Lagway, I think that pairing has a lot of potential there. But once again, I look at the schedule for Florida, and there's a reason their win total, according to our friends at FanDuel, is 6.5. I mean, you have a bunch of games where you go, 500 be great over that 6-game stretch.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to, is coaching needs to catch up to the talent, and that's why this offseason has been especially frustrating for me. I think Billy Napier should have hired an offensive coordinator, not because of some illogical reason like I see in my comment section and like we see on social media of like, Well, you can't run 2 tight end sets and be successful. That's just moronic. Yeah, no, you should see it.
You hear that? Are you kidding me?
All the time.
Oh, goodness.
But it's not stuff like that. I don't think the offensive system itself is bad for Florida. I think Billy's not a great play caller. And I think that by giving up play calling duties, you can be more of a head coach. Have your guys actually show up to play against opponents. 41-17 in a game where you had 8 months to prepare for it against Miami, and that's what you put up at home. Texas A&M last minute couldn't start Connor Wegman, had Marcel Reed come in. They didn't throw a ball for the last 20 minutes of the game because they were up so much on your home turf, and they were still moving the ball while running it. Like those kinds of things, Kentucky 2023, Utah 2023, we've seen it every single year with Billy Napier, where if you give up play calling duties, you can focus on being a head coach. And the fact that he didn't do that makes me think, okay, like this has to be it for Billy. You've either got, like, you're going to look like a genius or a jackass. Those are your 2 options, Billy. That's it. Because you either need to screw your head on straight and get things going with the offense and get things going as a head coach, or you're done. I don't think that if you go into year 4 opting to not hire an offensive coordinator, I don't think if things go bad, you get to go, oh, but next year I'll hire an OC and we'll just call it a day. I think you've forfeited that right by 4th year in a row, no OC.
Ryan Day just gave up play calling duties. He brought in a veteran in Chip Kelly. He, of course, as we discussed earlier, doesn't have his defense coordinator anymore, but he brought in a veteran to call plays, and what happened? It worked. It went pretty darn well. I understand the appeal because in the NFL you see a lot of coaches that call plays, but there's less to being a head coach in the NFL that is non-football centric than there is in college football. So I'm with you in that regard, that at the very least, by not hiring an OC, I think he almost gives Florida a better opportunity as an administration to move on from him if this season doesn't go well, because it's, hey, this is you. This isn't, I made a bad hire, I'm going to make a better one. This is, no, we're challenging you to be the better coach, to be the better play caller, to run this as you want to. And if it doesn't go right, then guess what? Florida's going to eventually go in a different direction. But I mean, DJ Lagway could lead them to another 7-win season, and I don't think they're going to fire him for that with that schedule, because eventually, with the way the scheduling works by conferences, it's going to soften up probably after this season.
Yeah, I mean, 2026, they'll get Auburn back, and Auburn sucks, so you get Auburn in 2026.
Zach Blackerby doesn't want to hear that on this show.
That's fine. I'm going to see him later on today. He wants to run up, he can get done up. It's as simple as that. But I do think that Florida won't fire Billy if he gets 7 wins. I mean, I said this when they didn't fire him this year, and I'm still, by the way, not fully convinced he earned that other year, but, you finish strong, I get it. But, administration of the University of Florida, they're spineless losers. They don't care about actually winning. They're not going to fire someone if he's getting winning seasons, I think, at this point. That's fine. That ain't the first time I called them that. So yeah, they're spineless losers over there. So we'll see if they actually do it. I do think DJ Lagway, I think this is your Lagway window. You got 2 years to try to make some kind of magic with DJ Lagway. I think that he has a lot of room to grow, but all the physical tools you could ask for. It's just about getting it right between the ears. So I think that if you get that going, this is your window. If your defense plays the way they played at the end of the season, they're going to be really freaking good. But if your poor coaching keeps screwing things up, you're going to waste one of the best rosters we've had at the University of Florida since the tail end of the Urban days, as in the couple years following Urban, when it was still Urban players. You're going to waste the most talented roster since then.
Never shy. Brandon Olsen, Locked On Gators. Appreciate it as always. Deion Sanders is still the head coach at Colorado. Oh my gosh, I'm so utterly shocked, except I'm not, for 2 reasons. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities for the Chiefs and the Eagles. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or betting on the coin toss for you sickos out there, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle and everything in between. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, you can bet college football too. Did you know you can bet win totals for a variety of college football teams? Did you know that you can bet individual games? Notre Dame -2.5 at Miami. What do you think about that? Well, if you think that line's going to shift one way or the other between now and August 31st, it's going to be played on Sunday, then you go check out FanDuel. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. So Deion Sanders is still the head coach of Colorado. He's not the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. He's not going to be. You're telling me he didn't want to leave Boulder, which looks like a pretty nice place to live, to go to Dallas, which also might not be a terrible place to live. But you're telling me he didn't want to go to a place where he would be under the thumb of Jerry Jones every day, where he'd be having to answer for comments that his owner makes all the time, as opposed to Boulder, where he really is kind of the owner of the team. I mean, everything that happens in Boulder, Deion Sanders gets to decide. Now, he can't magically make money appear. And there were reports about conversations about him and Rick George, the athletic director, and they're going back and forth, and there was disagreement about this, that, and the other thing. And people tried to spin that to make you think that, oh, well, maybe he'll really take the Cowboys' job. The phone call happened. The phone call took place. But that's all it really was. It was a phone call because the Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer. So if you were worried about Colorado losing Coach Prime for the Dallas Cowboys, two things that you probably weren't considering. Number one, the Cowboys are a horrifically run organization because Jerry Jones is the one running it. The guy stinks. There's no other general manager in all of football, unless he's, employed by himself, who cannot make a conference championship game in over 25 years and still have his job. But he does. So that's reason number one, frankly, that if I were Deion Sanders pondering, do I want to stay in college or do I want to go try and coach my son Shedeur and be a head coach in the NFL where I played once upon a time? Would I really do that? The Cowboys wouldn't even be one of the jobs that I'd ponder taking, even given the history between the two. I know Coach Prime's got a relationship with Jerry Jones and that Jerry Jones really likes Coach Prime. But let me ask you something. If you think, or why would you think that just because there is a prior connection and a mutual admiration or appreciation or cordiality between the two of those guys, Jerry Jones is suddenly going to stop running the organization? That he's not going to chime in on what Deion would be doing all the time? That's a dramatic shift, not just in coaching, because college and the NFL are different in so many ways, but that's a change in lifestyle. You're going from, I am the CEO and head coach of Colorado football, to I am the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. The brand is bigger than me, even though I'm Deion Sanders. The brand is bigger than me. The owner is the guy running the show. That's a big shift. You have to be dead set on, I'm going to be able to find a way to get Shedeur onto the Cowboys as the quarterback, which means they'd have to offload the Dak Prescott contract, which they're not going to be able to do. Who in their right mind would want to pay a now kind of injury-prone, really expensive and overpaid quarterback? The answer is the Dallas Cowboys and nobody else. And then you consider that everything that would have to line up in order for Shedeur to make his way to Dallas is highly improbable. Coupled with everything that I've been talking about, it never would have made a whole heck of a lot of sense. And in college football, Deion Sanders is kind of in the perfect spot. When he first went to Colorado, I said this is a perfect match because Deion is his own brand. Whether you like him or not, you have an opinion. He's polarizing. He's attention grabbing, but he keeps you in the conversation, keeps you in the loop, keeps you coming up on shows like this one or others across the country because, well, he generates some interest. He generates some intrigue. And in Colorado, he is able to run the show the way that he wants. But there's also value in being Coach Prime that doesn't extend to the NFL. The old adage in college football, adage, however you want to see it, is it about the Jimmies and the Joes or the X's and the O's? Well, of course it is about both. But we saw what happens at Colorado for the past, decade plus in the Big 12, in the Pac-12, going back to the Big 12. If Deion Sanders never shows up, I don't know who it is they're hiring that brings them to the level of expectation that they had at points during the season where it's, hey, can Colorado compete for a playoff spot in a Big 12 championship? Or they beat the national runners-up in his first game as the head coach. I don't think there is another coach in the country that accomplishes all of that because partially Deion brought Shedeur Sanders with him, but he also brought Travis Hunter with him. That guy's a pretty darn good football player. But in Boulder, Deion Prime, got the wires crossed a little bit right there. Coach Prime has an appeal and a brand that helps the product you put on the field. Nothing about Deion Sanders' personality makes the Cowboys a significantly better football team, but just his mere presence at Colorado gives you access to a higher level of talent than the Buffs had before. No, they have not become a high school recruiting power, but they hit the portal as frequently as anyone else, and they have not just gone out there and found a bunch of scrubs or rotation second-level guys. They have found Shedeur Sanders that came with him from Jackson State, admittedly, but Travis Hunter also in that discussion, or the guys they brought in like BJ Green, or even a high school recruit like Jordan Seaton. Those guys, those names were not even sniffing Colorado before he got there. So that's why it's such a great fit, is what he loves to do, whether you like it or not, is be himself, create attention, and give a vibe to a program. That helps elevate the product on the field because it helps you get better players. It doesn't help you in Dallas. In the NFL is for guys like Chip Kelly, for instance, who left being a head coach at UCLA to go be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State and is reportedly at least a candidate for some offensive coordinator jobs like the Texans position in the NFL. Why would he follow that progression? Because he doesn't want to do anything except coach ball. And yes, there are culture guys like Dan Campbell in the NFL, but Chip Kelly just wants to coach ball. Deion Sanders wants to coach ball and do all of the other stuff too. I mean, he was on, I think it was David Letterman recently, or is going to be. There were promos for it during the conference championship games over the weekend. That all fits really, really well. So I understand why people drew that connection of Dallas Cowboys, Deion Sanders. But really, it's just more of the same thing. Big brands, lots of attention, big names. It was never really a great fit in that sense. And Deion Sanders, again, whatever you think of him, is clearly a capable football coach. Colorado improved the first year he was there from the prior season, and they improved from that season to this season. Those are objective facts. You cannot dispute any of that. So he's clearly a capable coach. We'll see what he is without his son there, who is a first-round pick at quarterback and maybe the first quarterback off the board. It's either going to be him or Cam Ward there. But we'll see what he can do in that sense. But that's not the kind of guy the Cowboys typically hire. I mean, Mike McCarthy's fine. Like, whatever. Okay, sure. Mike McCarthy's won a lot of football games. He's a veteran coach. Congratulations, I guess. He's fine. His best days are behind him. But, he's won a lot of football games. But they hire their offense coordinator who's already in the building. I think, based on that particular move, it looks like Deion Sanders was the guy that Jerry Jones really wanted, and Deion told him no. That's how that read to me. Because he knows what he has at Colorado and what he can continue to build. And I do think the most genuine Deion Sanders is publicly when he's making, or when he's giving interviews or when he's talking, is the role that he feels that he plays, mentoring young men into being successful in their lives on and off the field. That is when I think he is at his most sincere publicly and not just going out and creating things for attention or taking shots at former players or doing all that sort of stuff. That I think is the best version of Deion Sanders. And that doesn't really carry over to the NFL either. So I never thought it was a great fit. I think Deion Sanders continues to succeed at Colorado. I do think they're a pullback team in 2025, but will he continue winning football games there? I fully expect him to. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.